and welcome. Aquariuster here, back with another video, and today is the return of the Healer Hammer build. Now, a lot of you might know that I played a lot of Healer Hammer in the past, especially Season 2 and Season 1, and it's time to bring it back for Season 3. We've had our fun with the Flail, we've been playing around with some other builds, got our tank build, DPS build, stuff like that done. So now it's time to revisit some of those older builds that I used to love playing and see what we can do as far as with Season 3, because I did make some changes to the hammer. So that's what we're going to be looking into today. Before we fully get into today's video, I do just want to say if this video helps you out or if you just like it, please drop it a like. It really helps me out a lot. And if you'd like to see more content like this, including more farming and build videos in the future, definitely subscribe to the channel so you're notified when those videos go up. And I also am streaming on Twitch and actually now YouTube throughout the week. So definitely stop by a stream, say hello, lurk, anything like that. We would love to have you. But let's get into today's video. All right, so to get us started, we are going to start with gear as always. Now, I'm not going to go super in depth as this is the same armor that I've been wearing for all my healer builds, but there is one slight change that I will mention as we go through it. So just go over it really quick. This is my gear that I'm running. We are running 4 stacks of refreshing, the nimble coat for our chest piece, so we get the extra cooldown reduction as well. And then we have health on most of our pieces, not everything, or a few of our pieces here, which is really nice because the nimble coat comes with health. So then we have 3 stacks of it right now. Like I said, the 4 stacks are refreshing, and then a couple of random stacks of other stuff here and there. For jewelry, I'm still wearing the same amulet. I do plan on replacing this eventually, but for now, the thrust protection really is not all that bad. It does kind of keep me from getting hit quite as hard from any of the bows out there. Same ring that I've been wearing, Hardy Sacred, nature damage. I like that extra damage output with the nature damage. And then I'm still wearing the same earring, which I do need to replace eventually, but I've really liked having the Refreshing Toast, Nimble, and Fortifying Toast. So that's what I've got for my gear. As for weapons, I'm still running that same Life Staff, which I will put a link below where you can actually farm this Life Staff because it is fantastic. It's worked really, really well for me. For the hammer, though, what I decided to go with this time, and I do plan on changing my hammer up eventually, but for now we have Sundering Clear Out, and typically I would go with Sundering Shockwave on my hammer, but because Sundering Clear Out is actually a larger rend, I put that on my hammer, and then I do plan on eventually having a piece of armor with Sundering Shockwave, but it's not overly necessary right away. But I do think having Sundering Clear Out on your hammer is really, really good because that's a 25% rend for 7 seconds that you're able to apply to a bunch of people. As for Heart Rune, I'm still running the Bile Bomb. You can definitely change up your Heart Rune depending on what you want, but Bile Bomb has worked really, really well for me. So this is kind of the layout that I go with. As far as my resistance goes, we do have a straight 10% on everything outside of thrust damage, which we have an increased resistance on, plus we have some thrust conditioning on our boots. So the thrust damage definitely does not do quite as much to this build, and I actually really do like it because I do play a decent amount of OPR, especially with my Healer Hammer build. I'm going to be running even more OPR with it because that's just where I have the most fun with it. All right, so that's the gear. Next, let's go take a look at the attributes and then the mastery. Okay, so taking a look at the attribute layout here, you can see it's a little bit different than what I've done for my previous healer builds, and that is because we have 50 strength. Now, the 50 strength initially started because I could not find a hammer that was full con or full focus or blend or anything. So we ended up going with a strength con hammer, and I was like, well, you know, that got us up to like 24 strength, so I said, you know what, let's just try 50 strength. 152 con, the rest into focus, and see what happens. And I'm really happy with it. It does seem to help with our light and heavy damage, especially since I like to run this type of a build either solo PvE or a OPR, stuff like that. It works really, really well because you can peel for backline, you can peel for yourself, you can help be aggressive. It's a really, really nice build overall. Prior to Flail, like this was my go-to for Life Staff. Like a lot of people knew that I would run Healer Hammer. So with the 50 strength, we do end up getting the extra light and heavy attack damage, so that's why it's actually not that bad to have. It does bump up the damage of our hammer just a little bit. The 152 con is because we do take that 48 con food, so then that gets us up to 200 con, and then the rest just gets dumped into focus. We just have as much focus as we can while still maintaining that 50 strength 200 con. So this is the attribute layout that works really, really well for me. Definitely tweak it if you feel like you could use, more con, more focus, anything like that. Like play around with it and see what works. But so far, this has been working really well for me. All right, so taking a look at the mastery here. Now, I'm not going to go super into the life staff build because I do change the life staff build here and there. And what I am going to do is in the description below is going to be a link to my life staff video where I share my top 4 builds that I like to run. So you can kind of pick between those builds and see what you like. I'm still really, really liking Splash of Light though, just as a heads up. It's still my favorite build to run this season so far, but I will put that link down below so you can check that out. All right, let's get into the hammer though. So this hammer build is very different from what I've ran in the past. Now, the only ability that is consistent with all of my hammer builds is Shockwave. Shockwave will always be on my hammer builds. I don't really ever change that. I love Shockwave. I think it's a fantastic ability. But what we are doing is we are running Armor Breaker. So no Wrecking Ball, no Path of Destiny. Instead of running Armor Breaker and Clear Out. Obviously, you guys knew that I was going to be running Clear Out because I have Sundering Clear Out on my hammer. And we'll start with the Crowd Crusher side really quick just to get through that. So obviously, Shockwave, we have that built all the way down, so we get that extra radius out of the Shockwave. And then with the Clear Out, we have kind of a nice little setup here. So with Clear Out, we have it built all the way down, so then we also get the Haste, increasing movement speed by 30% for 3 seconds, right? So that is kind of a nice little way that you can peel for yourself, Shockwave, Clear Out, start running, right? So you get the haste, and then if you have this guarded sprint ability, so reduce damage taken by 10% while sprinting. So now while you have that 30% haste right here, for 3 seconds, you're also taking 10% less damage while moving away. So from a peel standpoint where you're peeling for yourself or teammates or anything like that, it is fantastic. It will prevent you from taking quite as much damage. The big thing that I need to tell myself when I do this is keep the hammer out. Do not be swapping. Just keep the hammer out. It's your peel. It's your lifeline at that point. Unless I need to just hunker down in some heals, then I'll drop the heals. But in general, running with the hammer, it really does allow me to get away from certain situations or help certain teammates out of certain situations. So that's kind of what we got for the Clear Out side of things, kind of the reason why we are running the guarded sprint with the swing away. We also have the concussive impact, so deal 15% increased damage against targets affected by Warhammer debuffs, which is a good chunk of the time that we are attacking people. They will be affected by a debuff of sorts from us. And then we have the Prevailing Spirit, so heal for 35% of damage dealt when using a Crowd Crusher ability. So it's a nice just little burst of HP when we hit stuff with just any of the abilities. So it works really, really well. And then for the Juggernaut side, well, I should say on the Crowd Crusher side, we do make sure that we have Aftershock. I always run Aftershock. It's a nice slow. PvE, PvP, it actually works really well. If you Shockwave a whole group of adds, then they're all slowed as well. So kind of nice. On the Juggernaut side, we do go with Armor Breaker all the way down. So then we get a little bit of extra damage if they're above 70% health. Just gives us a nice little bop to them when we're hitting someone. We go with Exhaustive Attack. So then we apply Exhaust whenever we're using a hammer ability. It's really, really nice. I mean, Exhaust is really nice to prevent someone from running away. PvE, it's maybe not as useful, but for PvP, it is quite nice to have. Contemption, so we increase heavy attack damage by 15% against targets under 30% health. So if you can get someone below 30%, which we do have a lot of rend application, then you're going to do quite a bit of damage, especially if they hit you right before that, because then you get that 35% extra damage. So there's a lot of damage stacking on top of a lot of rend application. It's a really nice kind of combination where as a healer, given the right situation, you can do a lot of damage, but the main goal is to peel, support. The Armor Breaker kind of helps you to push, be a little bit more aggressive. If you don't want to run Armor Breaker, I would run Path of Destiny. Path of Destiny is fantastic. You can use it, your hammer as kind of a ranged attack then in that sense. And it gets you a lot of Heart Rune charge back if you use Path, just because you can hit so many people with it. And then for the last kind of passive perk on this side, we go with Quick Recovery. So with our heavy attacks, we get 7% of our cooldown reduction. Now, what you can also do is you can run the heavy attack where you get grit and everything, I just found that some of these other passives worked better for me, but if you were to change that, like let's say you're definitely more on the PvE side of things, I would drop the exhaustive attacks and put on hardened steel. Now you could do that even for PvP if you wanted to. I just like applying the exhaust and all that, but honestly you could go with hardened steel and it would be just fine. You do not need to run the exhaustive attacks. I just do it because I like to run this build in OPR a lot more. But that is my hammer build that I like to run for my healer hammer. It's been a lot of fun so far. So see how it works. Definitely tweak it, change some abilities if you need. But I will say the rend from clear out is fantastic. If you stack that rend with the armor breaker, whoever gets hit by that is going to be hurting for the next hits, because that's a lot of rend application right there. But that is it for the build itself. So next, I do have some gameplay that I'll show you guys so you can kind of see the build in a little bit of action in some OPRs and see what you think. But enjoy some gameplay. All right, that is going to do it for today's video. So thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. Like I said earlier, if you like the video or if it helped you out, please drop a like. It really helps me out a lot. And if you'd like to see more content like this, definitely subscribe to the channel so you're notified when those videos go up, as well as when I go live. I am now streaming throughout the week on Twitch and YouTube because we are now able to multi-stream. So definitely check out a stream, stop by, say hello, lurk, anything like that. We would love to have you. But that is going to do it for today's video. So until next time, I'll see you guys later.